One of the easiest things to implement that would have the largest impact at really any level, including the pro level, is leveraging the information that you get through scouting when you first turn the corner to kind of see the enemy team. That first information is really what kind of throws people off and what allows kind of gimmicky strategies like the Torbjorn and the Symmetra to really have lots of have a big impact, and I don't think they really should. Um, and it and I think that comes from the MOBA aspect of the game and like the kind of almost real time strategy esque aspect of it. Um, so look at games like StarCraft 2, right? So at the beginning of the game, you send out a worker to kind of see and kind of get a rapport with your opponent to kind of see what they're up to. Are they hiding anything? Is anything look a little off? Did they lift up their base and fly to the gold base to mine quicker to cheese you? You know, this is something you had to do to keep your opponent honest, and that's the really big thing to teach younger, newer level StarCraft players is you have to kind of keep your opponent honest. You never want to get caught off guard because that's just an easy loss. You always want to kind of take the favored fight. And in a game like Overwatch, you always want that favored fight. That first fight matters so much. It's such a big snowball effect because you win the first fight, you have the ult advantage, and you can push on from there. Take the second fight. The third fight usually is where it's reset to where usually both teams have some sort of ults left over. Usually they cancel each other out depending on what the second fight looked like, obviously. Games like League of Legends, let's say, where vision, again, kind of that same idea of scouting is really, really important because you can kind of move around the map with 100% certainty that you aren't going to get ganked by the jungler. So if, let's say, you ward their blue buff, then they can't be at their wraiths, they can't be at their red buff, they can't be at Baron. Those are ways that you can move around the map that are really safe because you know that the enemy jungler is at their blue buff. Now, how do we implement this in Overwatch, right? The easiest way that I can think of, and I think the biggest proponent now that we're seeing a lot of Symmetra, we're seeing a lot of Torbjorn being kind of peppered in. We're seeing some really creative and cheeky little spots. Taimu on King's Row kind of showed us that the crouching roadhog behind the bus. I think that you could probably get a couple kills that way, but I think it's something that's going to get found out. And I think this is like the scouting aspect of the game is really going to kind of come into its own once we see people really kind of run with these creative ideas, like pushing through like the spawn camping stuff. Like you could see people on Nimbani kind of position off in a corner and kind of catch you off guard and take a really easy fight, but you're never going to know that unless you scout. It'd take like 10 seconds for a Sombra to run in stealth while the other 5 teammates kind of hide off in a corner. Sombra runs in and scouts the point. Are they there? Are they not there? What do they have? Do they have a Symmetra? Do they have a Torbjorn? You can then teleport back. You could do this with a Tracer as well, which would probably be a little bit more reasonable with the prevalence of dive comp being really, really powerful. I think this is probably more applicable with a Tracer, but you can see the same conceptual mechanics involved here, where you go in, you kind of scout, you see what they have. Do they have let's say they have a Torbjorn. What you then can do is you can instantly go back, swap to a Pharah, and take the 60-40 fight in your favor and have a better chance on winning that first fight because, again, it matters so much that you take that first fight. It's really, really important. There's really no reason why you shouldn't do it. And I think that it's just playing blind Overwatch, and it's just kind of, it's not dumb, but it's just like misinformed. You never want to get caught off guard. You never want to get gimmicked out. You never want to get, Taimu bus hooked. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel good. A good example of good kind of scouting, conceptual scouting, it's a bad example, but you can see where this kind of would play into the example. Last night, Meta Athena versus Team Envious, and it was Hollywood. Um, Meta Athena was obviously on attack, and they were pushing through main, and Envious was set up on Cafe. Now this is where it kind of gets a little messy, where Meta Athena probably already had it in their brain. They probably got some scrims leaked, or they had the strategy already planned out that they were just going to do this regardless. They were going to run through Dark up through Cafe and use the high ground against them. But you can see the kind of conceptual nature that I'm trying to touch at. Hopefully you can. Is where you kind of push through main like they did. You see that they're set up on Cafe. You use that information to either go through Dark and up through Cafe again, just like Meta Athena did, or maybe you go around the back. Let's say in another example, you push through main and they have a Torbjorn. You know what's really great for point A on Hollywood? Pharah. You instantly go back, swap Pharah, swap Mercy maybe. You take that fight easy. Maybe, let's say, your team Envious. Maybe you don't have a good Pharah. Maybe you have a really good Widowmaker. You can swap to the Widow. The big thing that I'm trying to drive home here is that you really shouldn't get caught off guard by these. And I think they're, in a game like Overwatch where you're able to swap heroes, there should be no reason why you get kind of snowballed by the all-in defense of like a Symmetra, Torbjorn. Those really all-in defensive strategies, even like a Mercy Ana defense. Like if you scouted a Mercy Ana defense, you could probably... There's obviously a correct reaction, and I've never really thought of Mercy Ana on defense. It's very all-in, because you don't really have a defensive ult. You're kind of just playing for tempo. But you'd be able to see that and be able to react accordingly. Maybe you play quad tank into that because you're trying to fight against their tempo. The big thing, again, I'm trying to drive home is just scout. Don't play blind Overwatch. Play smart and reactive Overwatch. It's going to shore up your game, and it's going to make sure you don't lose silly games. Like a good example of like a real easy cheese that people do that I've only seen a couple times, but again, it's something that you should always check. On Route 66, that very first cart, I think the first time I've seen it was DreamHack of last year, I think. DreamHack winner. I think it was Rise, but don't quote me. On defense, Rise it was one map, obviously. They sat in the cart, and obviously they got Hanzo arrowed to scout, but I could see in the future a team getting caught by that shouldn't ever get caught by that, because it's just such an easy way. It's such an easy quick check that you should always check it. There's no reason not to. Like you're literally not losing any time. So don't play blind Overwatch. It's just bad.